I think we've gotten to a point in history where cars have gotten entirely too fast for most human beings to be able to actually handle at full tilt. By most, I'm not talking about everybody but you. I'm talking about everybody, including me and you. What, you don't think cars are getting too fast? The McLaren F1 was the fastest car in the world at one point, with 627 horsepower coming from a naturally aspirated V12. Nowadays, we've got twin turbo hybrid powertrains making over 1,000 horsepower. And while that may not be a solid representation of most people's cars, there are 18 cars available for sale right now or currently in production that make over 1,000 horsepower. And I'm not just talking about unobtainable hypercars. We got family SUVs, sedans, off-roaders, sports cars, supercars, hypercars, and from all different countries. England, Italy, Sweden, America, France. Actually, how about y'all locking y'all's bets right now on which country y'all think is gonna have the most 1,000 horsepower cars right now in the comments. Don't cheat. Also, make your guess on which country you think has the most powerful car right now. And while you're at it, make sure you like and subscribe because we're about to get into every single car that's on the market right now with more than 1,000 horsepower.
I'm TJ Hunt and you're watching Instagram.
Also, I'm specifically including cars that were designed, built, and rolled out of the factory with 1,000 horsepower. So I'm not including Brabus Rockets, Hennessy Mammoths, or Shelby Super Snakes. There is a Hennessy in this video, but it's not an Exorcist or a Velociraptor or something like that. Not even something like a Rezvani Beast, which is more or less a reskinned Corvette C8. And I'm also not counting one-offs, because technically they were never on the market. They were never meant to be sold to the general public. So, I mean, starting off with the Ferrari SF90. I'm gonna make these quick because we have a lot of cars to cover. This was Ferrari's first hybrid vehicle. Of course, we've seen the 296 and F80 since. Honestly, a really good looking vehicle. I didn't like it at first because the headlights and taillights were such a sudden change from the previous cars. But we've seen some really cool specs and some really cool mods come from this platform. That being said, I can only give Italy half a point because technically the SF90 doesn't have 1,000 horsepower. It has 1,000 CV. If you didn't know, CV stands for Chevaux Vapeur. Wait, hold up, hang on.
Chevaux Vapeur.
Chevaux Vapeur. Chevaux Vapeur.
Chevaux Vapeur.
Anyway, CVs are just small, weak Italian horses. They don't inject them with bald eagle testosterone like we do here in the States. So technically it makes 986 horsepower, but I knew y'all were gonna say something if I didn't talk about this car. Now for an Italian car that actually makes 1,000 horsepower, the Lamborghini Revuelto. With the help of 3 electric motors, somehow Lamborghini tricked the government into letting them continue to sell a naturally aspirated 6.5 liter V12 engine in a car that makes a combined 1,001 horsepower. You know, my main gripe with this car is not even that it's hybrid. I'm kind of over that now, but I wish the exhaust pipes came out to just one singular exhaust tip like how it did on the Aventador. I feel like that would look so much cleaner. The two just look kind of weird, especially with how the active wing looks when it raises. That and the black plastic on the front, but I played around in the configurator and I realized you can get a lot of the components in body color, which is cool. It's giving off Mercy vibes like that. Italy is now 1.5 for 2. Even though y'all cannot convince me that the Corvette ZR1 is a supercar, it is it is the most impressive sports car on the market right now. It's pushing 1,064 horsepower and it's gonna make a lot of supercar owners salty. And honestly, I think it could be the next king of Texas 2K. Back in the day, Corvettes kind of were running shit at Texas 2K. These days, it's the GTRs and the Huracans. And the record-holding Huracan from Underground Racing just went 246 miles an hour in the quarter mile from a 60 roll. That's only 13 miles an hour faster than a Corvette that comes with twin turbos and 1,000 horsepower from factory. Granted, they needed much more distance to do 233 miles an hour, but if it's doing that from factory with a quarter to a third of the power of these Huracans, and the Huracan and GTR just went out of production, as long as the motor is solid under 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 horsepower, I think the Corvette has potential to regain dominance at Texas 2K. If I say this car has more than 1,000 horsepower, but it actually sounds like a wisp of air, what car do you think I'm talking about? Here, you could even listen to a flyby. Who knows? Matter of fact, I'll let you listen to it one more time. It's the Ferrari F80. The 296 has one of the greatest sounding V6s out right now. How did their flagship hypercar, the LaFerrari successor, come out of the factory sounding nearly inaudible? Half the cylinders, none of the sound, but almost 4 times the price of a LaFerrari is pretty nuts to me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really not that upset at it having a V6 though. At least not as upset as the rest of the internet is. I'm just upset that you can't actually hear it. The V6 is based on the same architecture as the Le Mans winning 499P, but actually the F80 has even more horsepower. And y'all are acting like they reached reached in the parts bin and grabbed a Pentastar V6 from a Grand Cherokee or something. I might be one of the only people who actually likes how it looks though. It has to be in black though, with that big mandatory nostalgia stripe going across the front. I don't know why they felt the need to put that on every car ever since the 12 Cylindri came out. I designed this one in the Ferrari configurator, and I personally think my rendition looks pretty sick. What if I told you a small boutique American company was 3D printing an AI designed hypercar? Well, that's what Singer is doing with the 21C, and it's not entirely or even mostly designed with AI. The geniuses behind it deserve more credit than that for sure, but they use artificial intelligence to aid the design of structural components to maintain a certain standard of structural rigidity while making it as light as mathematically possible. They could have a team of engineers running thousands of equations for months, even years on end, or they can instruct AI to do it for them and find the most optimal shape for a given part. It's like how I could manually Photoshop each one of these frames to have a bunch of motion blur. I know how to do it. I could do it if I wanted to, but y'all wouldn't see another video from me until Cardi drops another album. So I just use After Effects, give it certain parameters, and it helps me make the motion blur much faster. I still had to have the vision and make it seamless by using the correct parameters. And if I was using it in a cinematic context, it would have to be so immersive that you don't actually notice that it's fake. And I feel like that same sort of logic can be scaled up to the operation at Singer regarding their AI designs. That's the kind of ingenuity that goes into a car that takes a lap record from a Koenigsegg. That's not even the coolest thing about this car though. My favorite thing about this car is that it has a 2.88 liter flat plane twin turbo V8 that revs to 11,000 RPMs. And with the electric motors makes a combined 1,250 horsepower from America. Since when did we start making so many flat plane V8s? We are so bad. Is the Red Bull RB17 in production? Because if it is, it's good for 1,200 horsepower from a 4.5 liter naturally aspirated 15,000 RPM B10. A naturally aspirated B10 at that, with an electric motor. I don't really want to get into this one as much since I'm not actually sure if it's in production or not. Does anyone in the comments know any more about this car? Anyways, Red Bull Advanced Technologies, who's going to be designing and manufacturing this vehicle, are based in England, so England gets a half a point here. If somebody in the comments can confirm that it's not in production and that it won't go into production before the end of the year, act like the half point doesn't even exist. The Koenigsegg Jesko might just be the car that I'd take out of this whole list. And I've never really been a huge Koenigsegg guy, but I can respect the fact that they make everything themselves. I can also respect their innovations in internal combustion, and I can also respect their groundbreaking records, but I've never had a Koenigsegg in my top 5 until the Jesko Absolute came out. I wouldn't even go crazy with the spec. I go all metallic black with silver wheels, maybe a crazy color on the leather in the interior. It's just so sick, especially with no wing, really interesting in-house transmission, and a twin turbo flat plane V8 that's making 1,600 horsepower on E85. And now Sweden's up on the board, tied with America at 1, and Italy is at 1.5, and England is at 0.5. But we're about to up the score on y'all again, because here in America, I present to you the microwave steak, the TV dinner, the instant ramen, the bland, tasteless chicken of the car community, the Tesla Model S Plaid. 1,020 horsepower will gap your dream car, and the owners of these godforsaken cars will let you know that anytime any other vehicle is brought up in conversation on Instagram. I swear, Tesla guys cannot comprehend the idea that anyone would like any other car for any other reason other than quarter mile times and horsepower. Dudes on Instagram will be like, I just got my E60 M5, I love it. And Tesla dudes will be like, that's cute. Do you seriously think a guy who bought a V10 family sedan of questionable reliability gives a fuck about getting gapped by a glorified Traxxas X-Max Ultimate? So not just one for America, but two, because we also have the Model X Plaid. And as a car guy, I'm not even really that proud to take these points, but I guess 2 points for America. I think I was more excited about the Aston Martin Valhalla than I was the Valkyrie, because it seems like a car that you can actually use on the road. That being said, $1 million for anything that shares a motor with an AMG GT is kinda insane, but it is a pretty good looking vehicle, nice interior. The size of the screen is insane though, especially considering how conservative the rest of the interiors are in Aston Martins. So where does that put England? 1.5, actually 1.3, since it's the same AMG motor as all the rest of the Aston Martins, with some hybrid motors taking it to 1,000 horsepower. Y'all lucky I even gave y'all that 0.5 for Red Bull, to be honest. But at least we're not shitting up schools, mate. Hey man, look here. Talk crazy like that again, I'm gonna put some brown sugar and some bacon into y'all's beans, and it's gonna send y'all in a fucking shock. Y'all don't season y'all's food. Y'all's ancestors conquered the entire world so y'all can have the finest spices, and y'all decide to not use that shit. What a waste of an empire. Anyways, the American microwaves are back at it in full force. We've got the Lucid Air Sapphire, and it's actually quite luxurious. I don't think I've ever heard a bad review of these cars from people who have driven them, but these cars kind of strike me as what Tesla owners think they drive. Dudes that drive Teslas have Lucid Air egos for sure. It's kind of crazy because Tesla doesn't even have the fastest family sedan. The Lucid Air Sapphire is making 1, 2, 3, 4 horsepower. How did they manage to unintentionally make an Elon type of joke and it be even better than an Elon level joke? They spent years putting together their lineup so that they could spell sexy, and Lucid just trumps them with the 1, 2, 3, 4 horsepower. If you didn't guess America with the most 1,000 horsepower cars, I'm sorry, you might just be stuck. That's 4 for America. And I already mentioned an American hypercar with the track record, the Singer 21C that took that title from the Koenigsegg Jesko at Laguna Seca. But there's one more. The Hennessy Venom F5 not only has 1,817 horsepower coming from a twin turbo 6.6 liter V8, but it turned corners fast enough at Coda to take the lap record there. Incredible looking car. Like the Jesko, I'd take this car in its wingless form. All these cars are pretty powerful, but this is a top 5er for looks, that's for sure. Interior is super nice too. American car interiors are actually getting pretty nice in general. 10 years ago, they were absolute dog water, including the first Hennessy Venom, but all the manufacturers have come quite a long way. That's one more for America. That puts us at 5. I hope nobody was betting money on this. Now let's go back to Italy, to a company very well known for designing the most aesthetically pleasing red machines for a company with a household name around the world, Coca-Cola. You didn't realize the Coke Freestyle machines were designed by Pininfarina, did you? That's because odds are you've never seen a Coke Freestyle machine that hasn't had the Pininfarina badge stolen off of it. After being dropped by Ferrari, terrible move by the way, they got their soda machine bag, then made their own car that was more powerful than any Ferrari. Unfortunately, it doesn't make any noise because it doesn't have a motor. It's all electric, but it makes more horsepower than the Hennessy Venom F5 at 1,877 horsepower, which I think is actually the most powerful car on this list. So if you commented back in the beginning of the video that Italy would have the most powerful car in this video, I hope you bet money on it. I'm only giving the Taycan Turbo GT half a point too. It makes 1,000 horsepower, but only under certain conditions. That condition is that you press the button that gives you more power, but it only gives you more than 1,000 horsepower for a few seconds. You can get 1,092 horsepower for 2 seconds or 1,019 horsepower for 10 seconds, but otherwise I don't think it's actually pushing over 1,000 horsepower. So yeah, the Taycan is one of my favorite EVs. It's electric, but it still somehow drives like a Porsche should, but I can only give it half a point here. Damn, honestly surprised it took Germany that long to get on the board. The Bugatti Tourbillon, and I guess the Revuelto for that matter, are my favorite type of hybrid. The kind where the only reason they have electric motors is so that they can also give it a gigantic naturally aspirated motor with an obscene amount of cylinders in a layout we haven't seen since Cadillac did it almost 100 years ago without pissing off the people at the government who actually care. It's making 1,600 horsepower from the V16 in the electric motors, and it sounds like either 2 V8 engines or 4 V4 motorcycles. If you told me 10 years ago that the Bugatti wouldn't be the most powerful one on this list, I don't think I would believe you. Finally, we got France up on the board. Hopefully nobody voted France for anything. I said the Pininfarina Battista was the most powerful car on this list, but I lied. It's actually the Rimac Nevera, but for what it's worth, they are based on the same platform. This one just makes 2,000 horsepower. If you bet any sort of money on Italy having the most powerful car, I don't know what to tell you. But I kind of find it odd that 150 of these are being made. They've been available since 2022 and still haven't sold out. For reference, your favorite hypercar company selling cars at similar prices or even more, so Bugatti, Pagani, Koenigsegg, they're sold out for years in advance and they're selling at higher quantities. Maybe they're already all spoken for, but if they're not, I wonder what this means for the high-end EV market. So we got one for Croatia. Casuals never saw this coming, but real supercar heads knew for sure. Does anyone know what the McLaren W1 actually sounds like? Because if we get one more extremely expensive McLaren that sounds exactly like a 720S, I'm gonna be slightly annoyed. They aren't bad sounding cars, but they literally use the same engine for every car. The only time this formula has changed is when some billionaires wanted a race car or when they wanted to put a V6 in a supercar. To be fair, it is one of the best sounding V6s on the market. It might even sound better than the 296. I just feel like McLaren's lineup has always felt a little monotonous. They all seem to serve a similar purpose, but it feels like they're releasing a car every single year. Like, why does the McLaren GT exist? I do get why the W1 exists though. Long awaited P1 successor that finally takes the brand well into the 4-digit territory, making 1,258 horsepower. The Rivian R1T is the only one on this list that I've actually had seat time in. I did a photo shoot for an owner a while ago. You can go check the video out via the card in the corner. He actually let me launch it, and it was extremely fast for an SUV. Now, I think I drove a 2023 model. It was in the top trim with a quad motor drivetrain, and it made 835 horsepower. It was moving for something that large and that quiet. But in 2025, that quad motor drivetrain has been upgraded to 1,000 horsepower. America may not have the most powerful vehicle on the market, but we do have the most 1,000 horsepower family sedans and commuters, right? And the most 1,000 horsepower cars overall. Some of them you can get for $50,000, $60,000. Honestly though, that's not good. People don't know what the they're doing with 1,000 horsepower. They're gonna fucking die. Wait, I kind of did forget about the Hummer EV, which is basically a Rivian R1T on steroids. But it's like the kind of big that most people don't want to be. Like, you know, it's nice to have some muscle mass on you, but once you got a beer gut and you're so big that you don't fit inside a normal sized car in the name of deadlifting 700 pounds, and you're so big that most clothing stores don't even carry your size, yeah, you kind of lost the plot. That's the Hummer EV. In its highest trim, it makes over 1,000 horsepower. So even though it weighs over 9,000 pounds, it still goes from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. I feel the need to give Italy an extra point as well, because not only do they have the SF90 Stradale, but they also have the fakest XX car to roll out of Maranello, the SF90 XX Stradale. Not a lot of people liked the SF90 XX when it came out. A lot of us were upset that they called it an XX when you consider the rest of the XX lineage. A lot more people were hating on the design. I think it actually works quite well for the most part. I really appreciate how they finished off the edges and the corner radii. It feels like they did this to an Apple level of design coherence, especially compared to the normal SF90. Overall, I actually like how it looks too. It has that extreme experimental XX look that I don't think a lot of road-going Ferrari customers and fans were ready for. But if you're working at Ferrari and you're watching this, I peeped the vision. One more point for Italy. I also forgot the Koenigsegg Gamera. Well, I didn't forget it, I just didn't realize it was in production. Honestly, the coolest thing on the road with 4 seats and like 24 cup holders. Seriously though, this thing has as many cup holders as it has cylinders. Those 8 cylinders are good for 2,269 horsepower, which to give it update means 1 more point for Sweden, and it means Sweden sweeps this list with the most powerful car. I forgot the score, so final results on the screen. We win, get good, GG's, back to the lobby, delete your app.